Millionaire forces Waitress to play piano, and she surprises everyone, leaving him speechless and in love. Before starting the story, drop a comment below. Which city are you watching from? Enjoy the story. Harry Montoya, a millionaire known for both his success and the coldness with which he treated those around him, hosted a grand gala at the most luxurious hotel in the city. While the guests mingled and toasted, Elisa, a young and reserved waitress, hurried between the tables. But something caught her attention: a grand piano in the corner of the room, and for a moment she froze, lost in memories, before her life was consumed by responsibilities that had been her world. But now, as a single mother to a 5-year-old girl and the sole caregiver for her gravely ill mother, the piano was nothing more than a distant dream. From across the room, Harry observed everything with a critical eye. He noticed the young woman standing still, lost in thought. Such behavior was not tolerated at his events. "You there?" He called, his firm voice cutting through the chatter around them. Elisa turned, startled, realizing that all eyes were now on her. "Yes, sir," she replied, striving to stay composed. Harry approached, his expression unreadable, his posture intimidating. He gestured toward the piano. "The pianist didn't show. You seem fascinated. Can you play?" Elisa's stomach ched. It had been years since she touched a piano, but Harry's piercing gaze demanded an answer. A little, sir," she replied hesitantly. Harry gave a cold smile. He didn't believe her, but saw an opportunity to amuse himself a little. "Then prove it. Play here now." Elisa stammered, glancing around nervously. "Yes, now?" His tone was almost a challenge. "Consider this an opportunity." Murmurs rippled through the guests, eager to see what would unfold. Elisa knew she couldn't refuse, taking a deep breath. She walked to the piano, her legs trembling with each step as she sat on the bench. Her mind raced. She knew this wasn't a gesture of kindness. It was an attempt to humiliate her, but something within her refused to back down entirely. Closing her eyes, she let her fingers touch the keys. The first note was hesitant, but it quickly grew stronger. It was a melody she knew well, filled with emotion and intensity. The once bustling room fell into a hushed silence. Elisa's fingers danced across the keys, and the music, long buried within her, erupted with unexpected power. Harry, who had started with a mocking smile, found his expression shifting. He hadn't expected this. He hadn't expected the waitress he'd underestimated to captivate the entire room with her music. As the final note faded, the silence was deafening. Elisa opened her eyes slowly, meeting a room full of stunned gazes. Some were moved, others incredulous. A hesitant clap broke the silence, followed by another, until the entire room erupted in a standing ovation. Elisa's heart, not with nervousness, but with something she hadn't felt in years. Pride. From across the room, Harry stood motionless, arms crossed, his expression inscrutable. "Interesting," he murmured to himself as the applause continued. The sound of clapping still echoed in Elisa's mind as she stepped away from the piano. Her legs shaky, she wanted to disappear into the shadows, escaping the unwanted attention that moment had brought. But before she could move, a firm voice interrupted her thoughts. "Wait," Harry said, just steps away. His voice, low but authoritative, silenced the murmurs around them. Elisa turned slowly, her heart pounding. He approached with the same confident stride, his eyes fixed on her. Around them, the guests whispered, curious about what would happen next. "Where did that talent come from?" he asked, studying her as if trying to solve a puzzle. I just learned when I was younger, sir," Elisa replied, avoiding his gaze. "What happened? Why are you serving tables instead of performing on stage?" The question stirred something deep within her. It felt as though he was probing a wound she had worked hard to keep hidden. Elisa lifted her gaze, meeting Harry's cold eyes. "Life happens, sir," she said, simply, her voice steady, despite the lump in her throat. Harry raised an eyebrow, surprised by her straightforward response. Few people dared to speak to him that way. Before he could reply, one of the gala organizers called him, pulling his attention away from Elisa, taking advantage of the moment she stepped back, ready to return to work. But before she could disappear, a firm hand grasped her arm. "Wait here," he said. And even without looking back, Elisa knew it wasn't a suggestion. She stood still, watching as he discussed something with the organizer. She couldn't understand why he seemed so interested in her music, But something about Harry's demeanor made it clear he wasn't the kind of man to leave things to chance. A few minutes later, he returned, his eyes fixed on her. "I need a pianist for an important event in 2 days. I want you to play Sorry, Sir. But I can't." Elisa began, surprised and already anticipating the complications this would bring. "Yes, you can. I'll take care of everything. You'll be there." His response was definitive, leaving no room for debate. Elisa felt a mix of indignation and nervousness. Who did he think he was to make such decisions for her? "Mr. Montoya, I have responsibilities, a daughter, a sick mother. I can't just, what if I said I could help with that?" Harry interrupted, his tone emotionless. "I can ensure your mother gets the best care and that you won't have to worry about anything while you perform." Elisa blinked, stunned by his proposal. Was he serious? Why, she asked, her voice quieter. "Now, why would you do this for someone like me?" "Because I need results, miss, and you've shown me you have potential." He offered a small smile, but it lacked warmth. "Think of it as an investment." Elisa didn't know how to respond somehow. The offer felt more like a trap than a favor. Yet at the same time, she couldn't ignore the possibility of easing her daily burdens. "Can I have until tomorrow to decide?" she asked, trying to buy some time. Harry nodded slowly. "Until tomorrow, don't be late." He walked away without saying another word, leaving Elisa with a storm of thoughts. That night, as she walked home through the quiet streets, Elisa felt the weight of Harry's proposal on her shoulders when she reached the small apartment she shared with her mother and Sophia. She found her mother lying on the couch, coughing softly while Sophia played with a sketchbook. "Mommy." Sophia shouted, running to hug her. Elisa pulled her daughter into her arms, feeling a pang of guilt for not being able to spend more time with her. Life was hard, but she did her best to shield Sophia from realizing just how hard it was. "How was work?" her mother asked, weakly intense. "As usual," Elisa replied, forcing a smile as she draped her coat over a chair. She sat beside her mother, holding her frail hand. The doctor had said the treatments were essential, but the costs were becoming increasingly difficult to manage. "I met someone today," Elisa began hesitantly. "He wants me to play piano at an event." Her mother's eyes widened, a glimmer of hope flickering in them. "Elisa, that's wonderful. You've always been so talented, but I'm not sure I should accept, Mom. This man, he doesn't seem like someone who does things without expecting something in return. Sometimes opportunities come from where we least expect them. Dear, think about what this could mean for you." For Sophia, Elisa sighed, glancing at her daughter, who had fallen asleep on a small mattress in the corner of the room. She knew her mother was right. The next day, Elisa arrived at Harry's office, located on one of the top floors of a luxurious downtown building. He was seated behind a glass desk reviewing documents, but he looked up as soon as she entered. "Have you made your decision?" he asked bluntly. Elisa took a deep breath. "Yes, sir, I'll do it." Harry nodded as if he'd already known her answer. "Good. I expect nothing less than perfection." His tone felt more like a command, and Elisa realized she was stepping into something far from simple. But for the first time in years, she felt there might be a chance to change her life. As Elisa left Harry's office, the weight of her decision settled on her. Her heart was still racing, and her mind wavered between the hope that this opportunity could ease her struggles and the fear that it might be another trap. As the elevator descended, she caught her reflection in the mirror doors. Her eyes showed exhaustion, but also a spark of determination she hadn't felt in a long time. When she returned home that evening, she found her mother trying to put Sophia to sleep, a task that was always challenging. Elisa approached quietly, picking Sophia up and singing softly until the little girl's eyes finally closed. After laying her down on the mattress, her mother watched her with curiosity. "You accepted, didn't you?" her mother asked, her voice tired but full of interest. Elisa nodded. "Yes, he wants me to play in 2 days. You'll do great. Dear, music has always been a part of you." Elisa wanted to believe, but the weight of responsibility felt overwhelming. After making sure her mother and Sophia were settled, she sat alone at the kitchen table. It was the only time of day she could think without interruptions. She needed to prepare. But after so much time away from the piano, did she still have the skill? A performance like this demanded. The next day, Elisa went to the hotel to rehearse. Harry had arranged for a space to be reserved for her practice. When she arrived, she saw a grand piano in the empty hall. The place felt intimidating but also offered the privacy she needed to focus. Sitting down at the bench, she let her fingers glide over the keys as if trying to recall the sensation of playing regularly. The first melody that came to her mind was a classical piece she had learned as a teenager. The music started tentatively, but gradually gained form. Each note brought back memories of who she had been before her life had changed so drastically. Midway through, the piece she heard footsteps behind her. She stopped immediately, turning to see Harry standing near the entrance, arms crossed. Watching her continue, he set his tone more of a command than a request. Elisa hesitated, but resumed playing, this time trying to ignore his presence when she finished the piece. Harry walked closer, his eyes analyzing every detail that was acceptable. But I expect more from the performance. Don't play as if you're alone. Play as if you want to command the room. Elisa felt a mix of frustration and challenge at his words. Who was he to tell her how to play? Yet there was something in the way he spoke, as if he saw something in her that even she couldn't recognize. "I'll do my best, sir," she replied calmly. Harry gave a slight smile. "I expect you to for the next 2 days." Elisa practiced whenever she could. She divided her time between caring for Sophia, helping her mother, and rehearsing at the hotel. Each time she sat at the piano, she felt like she was rediscovering something she had lost, but she also knew the pressure was building with every moment on the morning of the event. Her mother insisted that she rest a little before leaving. "You need to have a clear mind, Elisa. This is your moment." Elisa smiled, grateful for her mother's support. "Thank you, Mom, that means so much to me." She left home feeling a mix of nerves and anticipation. When she arrived at the hotel, she was taken to an improvised dressing room where an elegant dress had been left for her. It was a simple but sophisticated black gown, something she could never have afforded. She quickly put it on and looked in the mirror for a moment. She barely recognized herself when she was finally called to the hall. Her legs felt unsteady. The room was packed, elegant, guests chatted and laughed, completely unaware of the internal battle she was facing. Harry was at the back of the room talking with some investors when their eyes met. He gave her a subtle nod, signaling that it was time to begin. Elisa walked to the piano under the curious gazes of the guests. She sat on the bench, closing her eyes for a moment to take a deep breath. Then she placed her fingers on the keys and began to play the music. Started softly, almost timidly, but soon grew in strength. Elisa felt the melody flow through her hands, each nook filled with emotion. She played as if she were telling her story, as if each chord revealed parts of her soul. At first, the chatter in the room continued, but it gradually faded. The guests stopped to listen, some watching in admiration. Others, clearly surprised Harry on the other side of the room, stood still, his eyes fixed on her. When the final note faded, the silence was absolute. Elisa slowly opened her eyes, meeting the gaze of the audience. Then a single applause broke the silence, followed by another, until the entire room erupted in a standing ovation. She stood there, frozen as the sound of the applause washed over her. She had never felt so vulnerable and yet so alive. Harry approached her slowly, stopping at her side. At first he said nothing, simply looking into her eyes with an expression she couldn't decipher. "That was impressive, miss," he said in a low, almost gentle voice. "But I hope you realize this is only the beginning." Elisa didn't respond. She knew this moment marked the start of something new in her life, but she had no idea where it would lead. The sound of the applause still echoed in Elisa's mind as she left the hall that night. What had begun as an imposition had turned into a revealing experience. For the first time in years, she felt seen, as though her music had the power to express everything words never could on her way back home. Elisa thought about Sophia and her mother. Maybe this could mark the beginning of something new for them. But what exactly did it mean? Elisa wasn't sure when she arrived at their small apartment. She found her mother awake, waiting anxiously. "How did it go?" her mother asked, her voice filled with anticipation. Elisa placed her bag on the table and smiled, still trying to process everything that had happened. "It was unlike anything I've ever experienced. Mom, people liked it." I did it." Her mother held her hands, her eyes shining with emotion. "I knew you could do it. Music has always been a part of you. Don't let it slip away again, Elisa." "It's not that simple." Elisa replied hesitantly. Harry doesn't seem like the type of person who does something without expecting something in return. He's complicated, her mother frowned. Maybe he sees something in you that you don't see in yourself yet. Sometimes people surprise us. Elisa didn't reply in her mind. Harry remained an enigma. He had put her in this unexpected position. But he was also the one who had opened the door the next morning. Elisa went to the hotel to return the dress they had lent her. She didn't expect to see Harry, but there he was in the main hall, giving instructions to his staff when he noticed her. He gestured for her to approach Mr. Montoya. I just came to return. Keep the dress, consider it a gift. He interrupted casually. I can't accept this. Accept it, Elisa. It's just a dress, now sit down. He motioned to a chair beside him. Elisa hesitated but complied. Harry looked at her directly, his eyes assessing. You have talent, but something's missing. It's not just about technique. Elisa, music needs something more. She stared at him confused. And what exactly is this? Something more. Harry gave a small smile. Passion, you played well last night, but it felt like you were holding back. Like you were afraid of something? Elisa didn't know how to respond. He was right, but admitting it to him felt like giving him an upper hand. I just need more practice, she said, trying to avoid the subject. No, you need more confidence, he countered bluntly before she could reply. Harry stood. I want you to play again in a week. There's another event. It's bigger, more important, and you'll be there. Elisa's eyes widened. I don't know if I can do this, Harry. Shrugged. You can. It's just a decision with that. He walked away, leaving her alone with her thoughts. Let's play a little game for those reading the comments. Type hot dog below. Only those who made it this far will get it. Now let's continue the story in the days that followed. Elisa threw herself into rehearsals in the mornings. She cared for Sophia and her mother, ensuring everything was in order before heading to practice. Her mother constantly encouraged her, while Sophia watched curiously, sketching pozos and musical notes in her notebook. Mommy, I want to see you play one day, Sophia said, holding one of her drawings. Elisa smiled and hugged her. One day you will, my little one, I promise. At the hotel's hall, the rehearsals continued. Elisa was determined to do better this time. The music began to flow more naturally, and she felt like she was gradually reconnecting with the passion she had lost. Harry observed her occasionally but never interfered. He seemed content to watch her progress. Though he maintained his usual cold and distant demeanor, during one rehearsal he finally approached. It's better, he said, crossing his arms, but I still want more. Elisa stopped playing and looked at him frustrated. More? What exactly do you want me to play with my eyes closed, jump on the keys? What else do you want from me? Harry stared at her, surprised by the outburst. A barely noticeable smile appeared on his lips. Finally, some emotion. That's what I'm talking about. Use it, she huffed, irritated. You're impossible and you're getting better at this. He shot back, turning and leaving before she could say anything else. Elisa sat there staring at the piano, feeling her frustration boil over. But as she placed her hands back on the keys, she realized he was right. She played with more intensity, each note infused with emotion, and the difference was unmistakable on the day of the event. The hall was more crowded than ever. Elisa felt her nerves mounting as the moment approached. She was in the dressing room adjusting her dress when there was a knock at the door. Come in, she said, assuming it was an assistant to her. Her surprise, it was Harry. Are you ready? He asked, straight to the point, I think. So, she replied, trying to keep her composure. He looked at her for a moment, as if trying to read her thoughts. Remember, Elisa, you're here because you deserve to be now. Go and show them. His words were direct, but there was something in the way he spoke that felt almost kind. Elisa nodded, taking a deep breath before leaving the dressing room. As she entered the hall, the murmur ceased. All eyes turned to her as she walked toward the piano. She sat down, closed her eyes for a moment, and then began to play this time. There was no hesitation. Elisa played with all the intensity within her, each note telling her story of struggle, sacrifice, and love. The audience was completely silent, fully captivated by the music. When the last note faded, the room erupted into applause. Elisa opened her eyes, feeling a wave of relief and satisfaction at the back of the room. Harry watched with a faint smile, looking pleased after the performance. Many guests approached to praise her. Elisa was exhausted but radiant. She felt like she was finally reclaiming something she had lost as the hall began to empty. Harry approached her. "Congratulations, you're starting to understand." Elisa looked at him, still unsure of his true intentions, but this time she didn't feel intimidated. "Thank you, Mr. Montoya." He shook his head, almost smiling. "Call me Harry after the event." Elisa reflected on everything that had happened. Harry had shown a more human side throughout the evening, and although he remained enigmatic, she started to realize there was more to his controlled and cold demeanor. He seemed genuinely invested in her music. But why the next day Elisa was at home, taking care of Sophia and her mother, despite the success of the performance, her reality remained unchanged. Her mother's illness required constant care, and Sophia's mischievous comment that left her uncomfortable. "It's incredible how a simple waitress managed to come this far," a woman said sarcastically. Unaware that Elisa could hear her, Elisa took a deep breath, determined not to let the comment shake her confidence. When she stepped onto the stage, she played with more emotion than ever, as if pouring her soul into every note. By the end, the applause was deafening, and the same woman who had made the condescending remark was the first to stand and clap. Harry watched from the audience, beaming with pride after the event. He hugged her and whispered, "Never let anyone define who you are. You prove who you are every time you play." Elisa smiled, feeling empowered by his words as the wedding day drew closer. Family challenges persisted. Donna Carmen's health took a turn for the worse, and Elisa spent nights caring for her mother while juggling her rehearsals and work. One evening, as Harry helped Elisa prepare dinner, she confided in him, "Sometimes I feel like I can't handle it all. My mom, Sophia, my career, and now our wedding." Harry pulled her into a tight embrace. "Elisa, you don't have to do it all alone. I'm here. We're a team now." His words brought immediate comfort, and Elisa realized that for the first time in a long time, she truly had someone she could rely on. The wedding day arrived with a mix of nerves and excitement. The ceremony was held in a small outdoor garden, surrounded by flowers and delicate lights. Only close friends and family were present, making the moment intimate and special. Sophia carried the rings, walking down the aisle with a radiant smile. As the guests looked on with emotion, Elisa, dressed in a simple white gown, looked stunning as she walked toward the altar, where Harry waited with eyes full of love. When they exchanged vows, Harry held her hands and said, "Elisa, you've changed my life. You've taught me what it means to truly love, and I want to spend every day by your side, facing whatever challenges come our way." With her voice trembling, Elisa replied, "Harry, you've brought light into my life. Thank you for believing in me, for caring for me and my family. I promise to stand by you no matter what after there." "I do." The applause was warm and heartfelt, and the newlyweds shared a kiss that seemed to seal all their promises. The reception was filled with laughter, music, and heartfelt speeches. Marta, one of Elisa's bridesmaids, made sure to highlight Elisa's strength and resilience. "I've always known Elisa was special, but seeing her here today so happy and fulfilled is proof that she deserves every bit of joy she's found. And Harry, thank you for being the incredible partner she deserves." Elisa hugged Marta, grateful for her friendship and support over the years. In the months that followed, life began to settle into a comforting rhythm. Elisa continued her musical career now, with Harry's unwavering support. He was by her side for every significant moment, celebrating her achievements and helping her through challenges. Donna Carmen, though, still facing health issues, was at peace knowing her daughter was in good hands. Sophia thrived with the love and attention Harry gave her, now officially calling him Dad. But the biggest surprise came when Elisa discovered she was pregnant. The news brought a new wave of happiness to the family. "Are you serious?" Harry asked, his smile stretching from ear to ear. Elisa nodded, laughing at his reaction. "Yes, we're having a baby." Harry hugged her tightly, overwhelmed with emotion, and promised to be the best husband and father. The birth of their son, months later, was a moment of pure joy. A healthy baby boy named Lucas, in honor of Harry's father, brought the family even closer together. With Lucas's arrival, Elisa felt her life had finally come full circle. The first months after Lucas's birth were challenging, but filled with happiness. Elisa found herself in a balance she never thought possible, between caring for the baby, giving Sophia the attention she needed, and continuing her career as a pianist. She had Harry's constant support. He was always there sharing the household responsibilities and making sure she never felt alone one evening while nursing Lucas in the living room. Elisa watched Harry help Sophia with her homework. The scene was so ordinary, yet to her, it was a reflection of how much her life had changed. Harry was fully integrated into their family, and Sophia now called him Dad with ease. "Is everything okay over there?" Harry asked. Noticing Elisa watching him, she smiled, shaking her head. "Everything is perfect despite the domestic harmony." Elisa continued to face challenges in her career. Her growing popularity as a pianist brought her to more prestigious events, but it also attracted unwanted attention. Some critics still doubted her authenticity, questioning whether she truly deserved the recognition she was receiving one evening during a charity event where she had been invited to perform. Elisa overheard murmurs from two men in the audience while adjusting her. Elisa sighed, finally allowing herself to relax. "I needed to prove to myself that I could do this. You've already proven it to the world, Elisa. Now you just need to believe it." As Elisa's career continued to soar, Harry also experienced changes in his life. After years of managing the hotel, he realized he wanted something more. Inspired by Lisa's passion for her music, he decided to start his own consulting firm to help small business owners. "I want to do something that makes a difference just like you do with your music," he told her one night as they shared a glass of wine on the balcony. Elisa was surprised but proud. "I think it's wonderful, Harry. You've always supported me, and now it's your turn to follow your dreams." With Elisa's support, Harry launched the project, which quickly gained traction. His hands-on approach and extensive experience in the hospitality industry made him a sought-after consultant, soon attracting clients from across the state. Meanwhile, Sophia began experiencing her own milestones at 5 years old. She showed a surprising interest in the piano. Elisa noticed how Sophia's small fingers tried to mimic the movements she saw during her mother's performances. "Do you want to learn to play, sweetheart?" Elisa asked one afternoon. Sophia nodded enthusiastically. "I want to play like you, Mommy." Elisa began teaching her simple lessons, patiently guiding her. They spent afternoons together at the piano, and Harry often joined in singing or tapping along to the rhythm. These moments were special for the family. Elisa felt she was passing on not just her love of music, but a part of herself to her daughter. Despite the joys, challenges were never far away. Donna Carmen's health took another downturn, and Elisa had to dedicate more time to caring for her mother. Harry insisted on hiring a nurse to help, but Elisa initially resisted, worried about the cost. "It's not about the money, Elisa. It's about making sure you're not overwhelmed," he said firmly. After much discussion, she finally agreed. The nurse's presence brought immense relief to the family. Donna Carmen, for her part, seemed invigorated by the new addition to their household. "She's too good to be true," Carmen remarked one day while chatting with the nurse. "But I still think you should charge less." The nurse laughed, and Elisa shook her head, joining in the laughter. Over time, Elisa and Harry began planning a family trip, something they had always dreamed of, but never had the chance to do. Harry suggested visiting a small coastal town where he used to spend vacations as a child. "It has a beautiful beach. Sophia will love it, and so will you. It's a peaceful place, perfect for relaxing." Elisa loved the idea, and they scheduled the trip for the following month. During the vacation, the family grew even closer. Sophia played in the sand with Harry, while Elisa watched, holding Lucas in her arms. "It feels like a dream," she said as Harry sat beside her. "It's not a dream. It's our life," he replied. Kissing her forehead when they returned from the trip, Elisa felt rejuvenated. She decided to compose a new piece inspired by the moments they had shared on the beach. She spent hours at the piano crafting a melody that was both gentle and deeply emotional. One evening, as she played the piece for Harry, he suggested, "You should perform this at your next concert. It's beautiful and unique, just like you." Elisa hesitated, but eventually agreed. The piece was an overwhelming success and marked the beginning of a new chapter in her career. She started composing more frequently, drawing from her emotions and life experiences to create music that resonated deeply with her audience. The months turned into years, and the family continued to grow in love and unity. Sophia began participating in small piano recital. Following in her mother's footsteps, Lucas, now 2 years old, showed a natural curiosity for music. Eagerly banging on the piano keys with enthusiasm, Harry meanwhile expanded his company, becoming a respected name in his field. He and Elisa remained each other's strongest supporters, facing life's challenges, together with love and respect one evening. As the family gathered in the living room, Sophia made a request, "Mommy, can you play the beach song?" Elisa laughed, sitting at the piano. "Of course, sweetheart," as she played. Harry held Lucas in his arms while Sophia hummed softly along. It was a simple moment, yet filled with meaning. Elisa looked at Harry and felt a wave of gratitude. "Thank you for showing me that I could be happy again." Harry smiled, "Thank you for letting me be part of this." And so, surrounded by her family, Elisa realized she had found something even more precious than the applause of an audience: the love and harmony of a home where every dream could come true. What did you think of Elisa and Harry's story? Share your thoughts in the comments. Rate the story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to follow all our stories, and don't miss more heartwarming tales by clicking here on the end screen.